So at the end of an incredibly busy day, the Six Nations launch today, and there seems to be a massive amount of interest in women's rugby, particularly here today. Is that something that you found recently?
Yeah, I think the girls' game is definitely raising its profile. I think the World Cup's been massive in that, especially maybe with England winning the World Cup. It's created a lot of media coverage around it. I think I've definitely seen as a player from a club level that people are more interested. I'm getting asked a lot more about playing rugby and like the standard, etc. And I think people are just starting to filter in. People are a little bit more aware now that women's rugby is out there and that it is of a decent standard. And I think the games being televised more, club games being more on show, is showing the general public that women's rugby, it's a really decent standard and it's exciting to go and watch. So as a player, that's really encouraging to see. So if we can keep snowballing that, and we've seen it today at the Six Nations launch, there seems to be a lot more interest around not just the women's game but the women themselves wanting to know what we do in our private lives and as in like work lives, etc. So I think it's definitely on the up. A little bit of a way to go, but it's going in the right directions.
And sort of talking about fitting in with work, how does that work? How do you fit in this with your other life?
Yeah, a lot of organisation is key. I generally tend to make a lot of food for the next day. It's hard, but it's something that I've always done, and it's something that as a player, every player does. So it just means that you have to get to bed early because you know that you're going to be up at about 20 to 6 to get into the gym, and to make sure that you've planned and prepared, got all your food ready for the day before so that you're prepared for your training sessions, etc. So it's sometimes a struggle and it can be a bit hard at times, but you all do it because you want to get better as a rugby player, and it's the only way that you can do it at the moment. I'd love to go to professional rugby. To have that as my day job would be like a dream come true, and I think for some younger players coming through, that's a definite thing that is going to happen and something that they can strive towards, because for players like us, that would be what we would have wanted. It's so exciting to see that some players are going to get that in the future.
And looking towards the Six Nations, how do you keep motivated? How do you sort of G yourself up to face another Six Nations?
Yeah, it's a tough one because especially a player kind of getting to my ripe old age, sometimes you think when the off season comes, like, oh, maybe I'm not enjoying it as much, or maybe I should think about quitting. But as soon as that season starts and the thought or the prospect of another camp and the thought of the prospect of another Six Nations, it just gets you excited straight away, and the thought of the potential of your squad and what you can do, and playing games like against the Irish Exiles and the Nomads, and it just reaffirms your love for the sport, because I think once that's gone is the time then that I think you do need to kind of put your boots up and say that you've done your time and you've had enough. But thankfully for me, for the moment, it's all focused on trying to get that World Cup selection, and then I think for me personally that will probably be me done. But for a lot of our players, that'll just be the start, and that's what's really exciting about the Scotland squad, is that us being qualifying for a World Cup with such a young squad means that in the next 8 years, etc., we're just going to go from strength to strength. So it's really exciting to see.
And what inspires you? Or who inspires you?
What inspires me? So whenever I watch a men's rugby game, or seeing like today we saw the highlights of the Six Nations from last year, like games like that, and watching the Southern Hemisphere games and the autumn tests, just like makes you see the men do that and you think, wow, that's what I want to do, that's what I want us to do as a team, etc. And being around all your mates, because rugby is such a good sport for just being around all your family, and like a lot of my best friends are from rugby and club friends, etc. So all of that inspires you to just keep going forward and seeing the young come through and doing things like with rugby balls that you're just like, oh, like they've got an enthusiasm for it that spills up into you, and then that inspires you to try and to keep up with them. So yeah, just watching games, being around rugby people, it's such a unique sport and such a good atmosphere. I would tell anyone to just try and give it a go, because I think you get a lot from it. Core values, life values, everything. So it's a good thing to be involved in.